You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. We are all trying to find out who is going to be the next coach at LSU. That is a difficult task since Scott Woodward is very tight-lipped, and that is both strategic and very comforting, considering the last time LSU was handling a coaching search, the athletic director came on this station, the morning show, and declared, "I am the search." And, tact was not Joe Oliva's greatest strength. Actually, I'm not sure he had a greatest strength. Scott Woodward, as I've said many times, skillful, tactful, measured, thoughtful, smart. He's all of those things. And he doesn't care about your opinion or mine, which is what I want out of a leader. I want a leader that knows what he's looking for and can lead. Make a decision down that path and let's roll. Don't be influenced by the masses. Make your decision and go. Live with the results. But something else that I say here and every platform I'm on often is anytime that person has a conversation, there's someone on the other end of the phone. And while Scott Woodward may not say much, the people to whom he's talking might not be as tight-lipped. So if you're trying to get information about a coaching search, you may not go to Scott Woodward. You may go to Jimbo Fisher or Dabo Sweeney or James Franklin or Brian Kelly or Lincoln Riley or Mike Tomlin and people in their circle to see what type of information you can extract. And that's where you get a lot of the reports that come out. As it pertains to one college football reporter in particular, it's very easy to know where his information surrounding LSU comes from, and that's Bruce Feldman. Bruce Feldman is now with The Athletic, as you probably know, and Bruce Feldman is very close with Ed Ogeron. I've said for as long as Ed's been the coach, if you get any LSU news from Bruce Feldman, it came from one of two people, Ed Ogeron or Derek Panamsky. That's it. I'm maybe oversimplifying it a bit, but when Bruce Feldman wrote Meat Market years ago, Ed Ogeron was a centerpiece of that book. They've got a great relationship, personally, professionally, which is a great thing, but it's also very easy to understand where information comes from when Bruce gets it. Bruce Feldman was on the Breaking the Huddle podcast on Fox Sports, and he was on there with Joel Klatt, and Joel asked Bruce Feldman about the coaching openings. And they started by talking about TCU, and then they moved on to USC and LSU. First, here's what Bruce said about the USC opening.
Well, USC is really going through the search committee process to sort out what direction they think is best. I think they're trying to tap into a lot of people because there's a lot of different viewpoints on what USC needs. I mean, we obviously know James Franklin is a guy that people have looked at. Whether James Franklin is willing to leave Penn State at this point, he's not having a great year now. I mean, since this job came open, just in the last month, they're on a 3-game losing streak. I mean, it's not a stretch to think they could go 8-4, even 7-5. You know, how would that play, whether it was at USC or potentially even at LSU?
Not well here, obviously, and likely not well at USC also, although they did give Clay Helton an awful lot of rope. But, it remains to be seen how Penn State finishes. And like we talk about every week, the results on the field are going to dictate ebbs and flows in conversation. Look at Mel Tucker. There's a lot more people here on board with Mel Tucker today after the Michigan win than they might have been a week ago or a month ago. Now here's Bruce Feldman talking about the LSU job, and Feldman seems to think that it's really down to two guys.
The LSU one is really interesting because even though Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M had said he plans to remain on at A&M, and that kind of doused a lot of the speculation that Scott Woodward, the AD at LSU, would be able to hire him again. Remember, Woodward, when he was the AD at A&M, was able to pry Jimbo Fisher away from FSU. From what I'm hearing from people around LSU is that Scott Woodward is not giving up easily, and he feels like he may be able to pull Jimbo Fisher again, even though the A&M people are like, that's not happening. So we'll see how that plays out. Mel Tucker's a guy that that has obviously had a terrific year and done a really good job turning around Michigan State. He's a former LSU assistant, former Nick Saban assistant. He is very well thought of by a lot of people inside LSU, especially some really influential people. But ultimately, this will be Scott Woodward's hire. Can Jimbo Fisher really say no to him? We'll see.
Can Jimbo Fisher really say no to Scott Woodward? I have said, will continue to say the same thing. And I'm going to say it on every platform I'm on, so much so that you're probably going to get sick of hearing me say it, because I'm going to say the same thing to be consistent. I'm not just going to go on different platforms and make up different things to give you something else to hear. I do believe that Jimbo Fisher is and has always been the apple of Scott Woodward's eye. I know there are some boosters here at LSU that were very off-put by what happened in 2015 when LSU was far down the road with Jimbo Fisher and how that turned late and fell apart, in large part because of the way Jimmy Sexton handled it, and quite honestly because King Alexander and Joe Oliva were nincompoops, and it's a good thing they're both gone. But if ultimately it is Scott Woodward's hire, I have no doubt that Jimbo is the apple of his eye. I also believe firmly that Jimbo Fisher would have interest in LSU, has interest in LSU. But the analogy I've given and will continue to give is like a first date. Just because you go sit and have coffee together on a first date, what that says is that you're interested. You find each other attractive. There might be something there, so let's find out. It doesn't mean you're getting married. It doesn't mean you're going to walk down the aisle. It means you're having a first date. And maybe the first date goes really well and leads to a second date. And then maybe it leads to more serious things. And then ultimately an engagement and a proposal, and then you're married. I believe Jimbo and Scott Woodward do sort of long for each other in this analogy. I believe that. And maybe they'll have that first date. Or maybe they're beyond the first date at this point. This is getting more and more awkward now that I've thrown these two men's name into this conversation. But I think you understand my point. Just because there's interest doesn't mean it's going to get pushed across the finish line. But I believe that Scott Woodward is doing absolutely his due diligence. What he always does. He's got his upper deck moonshot candidates, and he's calling them all to see who's interested, what type of money it would take, who might nibble on that lure. And then he's got his guys or guy that he knows, if I offer this person this job, they're taking the job. We ain't going no further than that. It's not going to be one of these deals where 7 people publicly decline the job, right? Withdraw from consideration, and it looks like you're on your 8th candidate. It ain't going to be one of them. Because ultimately, you get to the guy you know that's taking it, you offer him the job, and you roll. And I believe that's Mel Tucker. If Jimbo can hit the moonshot, if Woodward can hit the moonshot with Jimbo or Dabo or if it's Lincoln Riley or Matt Rule, some of the other names you've heard, however that interest has come about, if he can hit that moonshot, awesome. And if not, I think Mel Tucker is right there and he knows he'll take the job. The one complicating factor would be, what if Mel Tucker gets Michigan State into the playoff? Now, they've got some big hills to climb still. They've got to play Ohio State. They're going to have to play Penn State as well, and then presumably a Big Ten championship game. Can they get through all of that unscathed? Probably not. But if they do, that complicates this story in a big way. Because then where do you go? And I don't have that answer. None of us do. Because Scott Woodward is notoriously tight-lipped. And it's a good thing. Because it's a very different thing from the last guy who did this job and did a very poor job in this situation. So, question is, do you trust Scott Woodward? I do. Day he was hired, I sat in this chair, like this exact chair with the messed up hydraulics on it that pumps me down all the time and everything. I sat in this exact chair, and there was a picture of Scott Woodward on this screen right here. And I said, this is the most impactful hire at LSU since they brought Nick Saban here in December of 1999. And it was for an exact reason like this, because Scott Woodward is going to make LSU relevant and consistently competitive, if not dominant, in every sport. And you've already seen it with his hires, with Kim Mulkey, and you're going to see it with Jay Johnson in baseball. Now he's going to do it in football. And this is why he's here. It's why he's here. And I believe he's going to nail it. And time will tell. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.